Imagine a mighty leader in his prime, at the height of his power, lying helpless in a dimly lit room of the White House, waiting in despair for death to come. It was not because enemies had stormed the Capitol, nor because of an incurable disease, but merely from unsterilized fingers probing blindly inside his wound. In the vast stream of history, the name James A. Garfield is often remembered as a footnote of profound regret. Tonight, by the soft glow of a flickering fire, let us wander into his real life through this gentle, unburdened story. What we see is not a lofty symbol of power, but a man rooted in humble soil, full of scholarly grace and passion for life. He studied late into the night by lamplight and charged fearlessly onto the battlefield, yet fell at last to the delusions of a madman and the medical ignorance of his era. The unpredictability of fate was like a sudden summer storm, extinguishing a fire that should have burned brightest. On this quiet night, let us travel back to that sweltering summer of 1881. Listen to the winds of the age, and watch how an ordinary man chosen by fate faced his sudden, unforeseen end. This story begins not in the grandeur of the White House, but in a mist-shrouded wilderness forest in Ohio. James A. Garfield was the last U.S. president born in a log cabin, a humble hut with only a rickety table and a few rough wooden stools. When he was 2 years old, his father died, leaving his fragile mother to struggle alone in the depths of poverty. As a child, Garfield walked on cold, muddy ground. Yet his eyes were fixed on the stars above. He was a born scholar, and among all U.S. presidents, his intellect was perhaps one of the most remarkable. Can you imagine? He was ambidextrous, able to write Greek with one hand and Latin with the other at the same time. Such extraordinary talent, forged against hardship, destined him to escape the poverty of his log cabin and strive for more. He pulled barges along canals, chopped wood under the scorching sun, and every penny he earned went toward thick, classic books. He had little desire for power. Instead, he preferred the quiet life of a college president or inspiring students from a podium. Yet the turbulent times reached out like an invisible hand, roughly pulling him from his study and onto the bloody battlefields. Amid the smoke of the Civil War, this scholar-soldier showed astonishing courage and leadership. Deep inside, though, he still longed for literature and a peaceful life, a contradiction that defined his entire life. Garfield's rise to power came from an accident even he never saw coming. The 1880 Republican Convention was a days-long deadlock of shouting and political maneuvering. Two rival factions fought bitterly over their candidates, leaving the convention in complete stalemate. Garfield stepped forward to speak on behalf of a supporter. His deep, magnetic voice instantly calmed the restless hall. He sought no office for himself. Yet in that moment, people saw in him a natural, unimposing air of leadership. Round after round of voting brought an absurd yet fitting result. The man who never wanted to run became the nominee. He stood on stage, stunned, like a child called by fate, who was not ready to accept the prize. That year, he entered the White House with almost innocent idealism, determined to preserve the integrity of a poor boy made good amid rampant political corruption. But shadows lingered behind power. A man named Charles Guiteau wandered the streets of Washington, his heart burning with madness. Guiteau believed he had helped Garfield win the presidency and furiously demanded a diplomatic post abroad. When rejected, his disappointment twisted into hatred, and he became convinced that killing the president was a sacred mission from God. Meanwhile, Garfield was joyfully planning a vacation, eager to take his children to see the ocean and feel the long-missed sea breeze. On July 2, 1881, the air hung thick and sweltering inside a Washington train station. Garfield traveled without bodyguards, walking casually along the platform, chatting with colleagues about his upcoming holiday. Suddenly, two sharp gunshots shattered the morning calm. The president's body convulsed, and he fell heavily to the cold floor. One bullet grazed his arm. The other lodged deep in his abdomen, near his spine. Had modern medicine intervened at that moment, Garfield likely would have recovered in weeks and returned to office. But in that era, the germ theory was still emerging across the ocean in Europe, while American doctors clung to a brutal philosophy of brute force healing. Dozens of physicians, without sterilizing their hands or tools, used their fingers, eyes, and rusted probes to search repeatedly for the bullet inside Garfield's wound. Each exploration was a devastating violation, as they personally introduced deadly bacteria into his bloodstream. Lying on his sickbed in the White House, Garfield's once vibrant face quickly withered and gaunt. It was the darkest, slowest summer in American history. As the entire nation followed his fever charts in the newspapers, he endured inhuman suffering yet maintained the restraint and dignity of a scholar, even writing comforting letters to his anxious wife. This long, public decline plunged the whole country into an unshakable collective sorrow. To locate the fatal bullet, scientists of the age even called upon Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone. Sweating profusely, Bell used his primitive metal detector to sweep repeatedly over the president's body. Yet the steel springs inside Garfield's mattress created constant interference, misleading everyone with false signals. Little did they know, this was just another dark joke played by death. In that room, Garfield's weight plummeted from 95 kilograms to 60 kilograms. He could no longer eat, kept alive only by force-feeding. In the stuffy White House chamber, fans blew air over massive blocks of ice to cool the room, but they could not fight the fire raging inside him. Sepsis was devouring his body. He asked to be taken to the seaside, to hear the waves, for he felt the air of Washington reeked of death. A temporary railroad was built straight to his bedroom door, carrying him to Elburn Beach, New Jersey. As the train rolled through towns, thousands lined the tracks in silent reverence. No noise, only quiet mourning. Lying in a seaside cottage, he stared out the window at the gray Atlantic, its tides carrying away his last consciousness. Moments before his death, he whispered, "Is this suffering ever going to end?" On September 19, 1881, as summer drew to a close, James A. Garfield finally surrendered his weary soul to the sound of the waves. Garfield's story ended, but its echo lingered long in the quiet night of history. If you trace the bullet's path, you will find it missed every vital organ. What truly killed him was not an assassin's rage, but the arrogance and ignorance of his time. He became a sacrifice of progress, his 80 days of agony finally awakening the American medical community. After his death, sterile practices spread across the nation, and civil service reform was driven forward by his martyrdom. He never got the chance to be a great president, yet in the stillness after his death, he achieved one of the greatest final acts. Now, close your eyes. Picture that boy in the Ohio log cabin, reading Latin by firelight. Imagine him pulling a barge rope beneath the moon, his heart full of longing for a world unknown. Fate gifted him a brilliant mind, yet gave him the cruelest of fates. But on this cool evening, such unpredictability is no longer a heavy chain, but a quiet farewell. Like the waves lapping the New Jersey shore, all storms, no matter how fierce, finally calm. Good night, on this night that asks nothing of your memory. May your dreams be filled with warm starlight, and the sea you will one day reach.